lovelies. We are back with another week of Shit's True, where we go over the movies and the true stories that they were apparently about. And this last week was a downer. It was a big old Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
So I chose something a little more lighthearted this week with Catch Me If You Can, the movie from 2002, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. And it was directed by Spielberg. So, you know, it's a good movie.
Yeah. Better than expected. Yeah. I'd never seen it before.
Really?
Yeah.
I love this movie.
I missed a lot. I missed a lot of movies.
So, what did you think about it?
I liked it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I thought he keeps like talking, and I'm like literally in the middle of doing something.
Yeah, the scene. So we come in with the movie with Frank William Abagnale,
which is a wild ass name.
Yeah. Well, you come in on the movie and it's a game show.
Yeah.
And then it jumps to Frank in prison.
Right.
A terrible prison, trying to get extradited back to America and trying to run. And then it jumps to Frank like 14 and his dad's getting an award. Like it's setting up that his family's wealthy, well off. Mom and dad really love each other. They're dancing and stuff. And then you stay along on this timeline pretty consistently, where you find out Frank's parents. Well, first, so daddy lost all the money, IRS stuff. So
tale as old as time.
Right. And he's trying to like work over the banks and stuff. And you see little tidbits where he's teaching Frank a little street smart stuff here and there. And then they're moving into the smaller place. And then Frank's going to come home to his mama with another man in that apartment.
Yeah.
And that was so painfully awkward. I was like, oh my God. But they did have where he started his new school, which I thought was super weird that he would like wear his uniform to the new school. He went from a private school to a public school.
So I got the feeling when you're going through the movie and it's Frank as like a high schooler, like a teenager. I got the feeling that he was that really weird kid in class who was just like using like SAT words and just saying off the wall shit. Like I had a couple kids like that in my school where they would like wear suit and ties to our little fucking bumfuck nowhere boonies high school. I got the feeling that he was one of those kids. So I wasn't surprised to see him still wearing it. I was like, yeah, that tracks.
They did set him up to be off. Like in the beginning, like even in the beginning when he's picking at a wine bottle at the party and stuff. And I found it really uncomfortable how he calls his dad daddy. Like
that's
the
weird.
Entire movie. I'm like,
I think that's just another time.
Stop it.
I think that's just another time. Like, I think that word has just evolved. And now it's weird and awkward.
It makes me uncomfortable now. People have made the word daddy very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I think they did a good job of portraying him when he was younger as the kid who thinks that he's more mature than he is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
So you find out Frank's first scheme is when he's going to the school and the kids are talking shit about him and they're like, oh, he looks like a substitute teacher, which light bulb in his head. He just takes over the classroom. And next thing you know, it's jumping to him at the principal's office because he apparently played pretend an entire week of school.
Yeah, like 5 days.
And like the teacher's trying to tell the parents, and the mom did seem a little like mortified, but the dad's like, that's my boy. And honestly, I can't blame him. I would feel a little bit like, are y'all stupid? Because I don't know what's wrong with y'all.
Like, how did he pull that off? Like, I would be low-key, I'd be a little proud. Like, I'd be like, damn, I cannot believe you.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be like, you're going fucking places, kid. You do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Somewhere.
You're going places.
Somewhere.
Right? But I will say, I do think Leo's a good actor. He played the part really well. This was one part where I was like, he looked too young. Like, it's not realistic that anyone would look at him and go, oh yeah, that could be a teacher. He looks like a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that, but I also look a lot younger than I am. So like I even when I was an adult, I would routinely get like people thought that I was like a high school kid. So I can understand like sometimes being like even now I look at some people and I'm like, how fucking old are
Maybe.
you? Like I have no idea. I can't tell. So I get it. And also like the way he kind of came in and commanded the classroom and yelled at everyone, I
Yeah.
could see where they would be like, "Oh shit, he really is. He's yelling. So he knows what he's talking about." You know, that whole like
When
authority thing.
when he told the old lady, he was like, sounds like a you problem. She's
Right.
like,
Sorry, you
I'm
came
never
all the
gonna
way
come
out
to
here.
school again. They just
I
don't
did.
care about me.
I did start laughing at that point when she started going off. You can tell them. You can tell them shit.
So soon after this, the parents pull him in and he finds out they're having a divorce. And they did it so traumatically. Like, if
That
this
is
is how
so
they really
weird.
divorced back in the 60s, yeah. He
He
comes
comes
in
in.
to a
There's another
stranger being
man.
like, meet us in the bedroom. Why weren't the parents telling him? The stranger's telling him, meet us in the bedroom. And
Another
he's like,
man in the
okay.
apartment.
And then you have your French grandma tuddling around that you apparently haven't seen in ever.
She
Like,
doesn't speak English,
just
apparently.
speaking French around, kissing you on the cheek, and then your parents like, everything's gonna be fine. Just pick one, but everything's gonna be fine. Write a name on the paper. Like,
That was the weirdest.
that was
The whole thing.
crazy.
But I did start laughing because when he comes in and he sees another grown man, grown stranger in the house, his first reaction is to throw his coat at him. What the fuck is that gonna do? He
You know
starts
what?
yelling, "Get out!"
He was ready to fight, and I respect that because I would have been just crying on the floor, like,
I would have froze. I have a freeze response like nothing
oh
else. I would have
man.
just been like, no.
Right. Definitely would have walked into the room though. Like, no,
No,
nope,
absolutely not.
not
No.
walking in that room.
Crazy.
So at this point, Frank, they built up the tension in that scene to where you understand Frank runs away. He ends up at
Mm,
a train stop. And for I say, his dad for his like 16th birthday got him his first checkbook.
right.
And he only had $25 in the account. But this is where Frank starts writing his first bad checks. I guess he goes to New York City
Yeah.
and they kind of start a little montage of him like working. He's trying to write bad checks and get out money, but it's not quite working. And he's trying to use the necklace trick his dad had, which I thought was a very weird trick. I didn't understand that hustle. Oh, Deborah, is this yours? I'd be like, no,
Yeah, like I think it's just a
close the
really
door.
like
Like,
I think that was like a roundabout way of like trying to like bribe these women, but like
okay, maybe. Cause
with
I
like
was
a
like,
5 cent like gumball machine
right?
necklace. Apparently it works. Apparently this is what, the 60s? Apparently
Yeah.
women in the 60s were just
We're just like,
fucking
oh, jewelry, thank
the
you.
fuck?
Right? Um, so while he's going through this part of like, you can tell he's like super broke. Little lies here and there, little checks here and there, and all of a sudden he's walking down the street in New York and like lights behind them, a pilot and all of his flight attendants walk out, and it's just like
Yeah. So
going to
Frank
begin.
decides, yeah,
Oh yeah, he's
Frank
he's in
decides
right
this
then
is
and
the
there.
new con. Yep.
So he at first he dresses up as like a paper boy for a school, interviewing the Pan Am head guy and to kind of understand parts of Pan Am and what uniform
Right.
he'll need and stuff. Then he calls the uniform people and he's like, oh, I lost my uniform. And they're like, just go pick one up. And then he goes and then he gets a uniform.
My whole thing with this is that when he's talking to the pilot with Pan Am, he's like, "Oh, can I get a copy of your like documentation to print in my little school newspaper?" And the guy's just like, "Yeah, keep it." And he's
Take
like,
it.
"Okay,
That one expired too.
cool."
But you know what?
You just did
Epitome
it.
60s. That is the epitome. We won't ever
Oh
understand
God.
that because we're post
We
9/11
don't
kids.
trust anyone.
Yeah. We're post 90s and 9/11. We never, the 60s was a magical time where you
Apparently.
just trusted everybody. Everybody was trustworthy back
Well,
then.
I
No
mean,
sense of security.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised because this is like the heyday, the beginning of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Mm.
And I don't know if you know this, but the way they used to get into people's houses to do investigations was Ed would paint a picture, like a watercolor of their house, and then they would just knock on the door and be like, "Hey, we painted this picture of your house, and also we think it might be haunted. Can we do an investigation?" And people were like, "Cool."
It sounds
Like,
amazing.
I shouldn't be surprised, but every time I hear something like this happening in the 60s, I'm like, y'all are off your fucking rocker.
It was a beautiful time in history, apparently.
Yeah,
Just
it was also a
everybody
lot of
was your
serial
friend,
killers.
right? Everybody was your friend. Everybody was welcome. Who locks a door in the 60s? Not a damn one.
Yeah,
Like,
apparently fucking nobody.
right? So he gets his uniform and he starts kind of walking around the airport. And this one lady's like, "Oh, you must be my deadhead." And he's learning the lingo, ends up on a plane, um, and kind of figures out, holy shit, I can travel the world. And then he hooks up with the hot stewardess, who is Ellen Pompeo, Meredith Grey. This
Yep.
movie was chocked full of little beginner stars here.
So
Like,
many people.
yeah, almost all the women here with are like A-list celebrities now. Like,
Right. And they did a
so,
good job. They were good.
oh yeah. But what I loved about this scene, where I even put a little like, so they really chalked this up to be like his first time.
Yeah.
He's six. Then we have to remember this. He's 16 doing this.
And this is a full grown adult woman.
She's a grown woman, but she does. I'll give her the.
She doesn't know.
He's pretending to be an adult. I'm just more like, of course they show it as he's just fucking killing it. He just gave her the night of
Right.
his life
Excuse me.
on his first time.
He doesn't know. I mean, what did he
Seriously,
look at some did he steal some magazines from the gas station? Like,
right? He's pulling out all the stops. They got the table shaking and everything. I'm like, and her being like, just so out of breath, just like it was the night of her life. I was like, really? The 16-year-old virgin did that? Get out of my
right.
face. Get out of my
Either
face.
either you were totally lying, or I feel really bad for you
Yeah.
for all your other encounters.
Yes.
I feel very bad.
Definitely. So at this point, you get introduced to Tom Hanks's character. It's the FBI side of it. And they really set him up to be like that. Him going after bank and white collar crimes is a joke. Like, everyone's in the meeting, like none of his stuff's working. Everyone's kind of like, why are we fucking here? But he's like, this shit's serious. And you kind of find out how he's doing his check thing, where he's changing the numbers on them and sending them so that they don't go to the right part of the country, they go to another part of the country. And this is a time of snail mail, so it would take weeks to sort all that out and realize they've been duped.
Right. And he was like buying toy airplanes and soaking them in the tub to get the little because at the time checks were just blank. Like, they didn't have any of the embossing or anything. They were just literally just a blank piece of paper with like a logo on it. So he was getting the fucking airplanes and soaking the logos off of them to put on these totally blank checks with random fucking numbers on them.
And he went to an auction and got the special type of typewriter to do the checks. But he was also making himself not just regular bank checks, but paychecks,
right?
And then just getting those paid out. And then it pretty much said like people would see his suit and not question a damn thing. One bank clerk just led him behind the desk, or just walking behind the desk.
Yeah, because apparently he was so charismatic.
Yeah,
that he just
come on back. Like, no manager would question that at all.
And he didn't even need to go to the bank sometimes to get them cashed. He was cashing them at like hotel desks. Apparently, they just cash checks.
Oh yeah,
Where the fuck ever?
Pan Am pilots were seen as such a like Ooh,
lucrative. Yeah.
they got it. So
Right.
nobody was questioning anything from him. He
It's
could do
like
whatever the fuck he wanted.
It's like Bob's Burgers. If it's got an American flag on it, you know that check is gonna cash.
uh, so so around this time, so we know the FBI is after the check part, and he gets almost caught because
Right.
they're checking out some things, and the guy's like, "My guests need their privacy," and he's like, "You saying he's still here?" He's like, "Room 203," and
Right.
then
The
they go
hotel guy.
upstairs,
Yeah.
and this part was so crazy to me. He comes and he's like, "But get down!" Like serious copping it, and Frank's just like, "Oh, you're too late. Me and my guys already took him out." Like, just plays
So
it up
fast.
and says just like this, like, it starts acting like he's Secret Service. Excuse me. And like slowly but surely, the other cop is like, "Oh, okay, yeah." He gives him his wallet and everything. He takes his stuff. He's like, "I'm gonna run this out to the car. If you could just make sure no one messes with the room."
Yeah,
And
the
he walks
LAPD is
away.
gonna be here
Yeah,
soon.
and then he's just sitting on the bed like, "Oh, Secret Service is here.
I knew my shit was
Wait a
legit.
minute."
Yep.
Like, and then
So
quickly
fast.
realizes he had been duped, and that is the first duping of these two.
And can I
Um,
just say, I forgot that they used to do this in movies because and TV shows because now in movies and TV shows when you see anyone that's like any of the three-letter agencies, even like detectives, they're all in like kind of dressed down. They're all in like normal fancy clothes, like normal
mhm,
button downs and stuff. But back in this was like what, 2002, 2004 or something that the movie was made.
2002.
You used to be able to tell who the cops and, like, the FBI people were because they all looked like they were in the Blues Brothers. They
Yeah.
all had, like, the plain black suit, the plain black skinny tie, and as soon as I saw Tom Hanks as that, I was like, "We need to bring this back."
Right.
Like,
It
"This
needs
is
to be the cop
slick.
uniform,
This is
like,
good." So,
yeah,
like, I just wanted to say that because that was my thought, like, the whole movie. I was like, "I am enjoying this."
yeah.
Just because they look like cops.
And then I said it's very well acted, which it was. Even
Yes.
they're both really good to watch together, especially like in their scenes when
Yeah,
they're
it was a
playing
fun
cat and mouse and
time.
stuff. Yeah, it's really fun. Like, um, oh, this is where my handwriting went to shit apparently.
So he almost catches him, but he like runs off with the typewriter and stuff.
Oh yeah, so he runs out. So he already knows his check part is thin line in it. Cops are after him. He then
Right.
goes, he's pretending to be a paper boy again for some reason, I guess to get more information out of Pan Am. And in that, he finds out that they're on to his um hopping seats scam.
Right.
And they don't know it's him, but they're like, "Oh yeah, they want us to find this
Somebody.
guy," and you know,
Right.
which makes him go, "Shit, time's up, gotta go." So um he decides to switch, and it kind of gave him a little bit of time as a Secret Service agent. Like, he watched some James Bond movies,
Yeah, he
and
went full
it's kind of like,
supernatural for a second. He
yeah,
went
and he
full
was like,
supernatural.
"I gotta get the fancy car and the suit," and then he has a great night with a prostitute, and that seemed to be his very short time as a detective.
Yeah, he totally stiffed her. He signed
Oh,
over
he
one of his
stole
checks,
her
and
money.
then she gave him an exchange. She gave him change back for it.
Yeah,
It was like $1,000. He had a check for 1,400, and he was
she's
like,
like, "Just
"Oh,
give me the check."
I'm gonna go cash this." And she was like, "Nah, just sign it over to me, and I'll give you the change." She's like, pulls four hundred
Yep.
dollars out of her tits.
I
Like
was
he
like,
literally just stole.
yeah, I was like, "You stole from the prostitute. What an asshole move." Like,
Which $1,000 a night in 1960. That's that.
that's like,
I'm sure she
that's
was
high
very good
roller
at her
right
job.
there. Yeah. But what's crazy is simultaneously they're playing, so he's living it up, James Bond style, with high class prostitute, while Carl, the detective, is down in the laundromat having all of his clothes. Like, they give him such a sad sack life. Like,
Yeah, like
they
I think he
really
got
make it like this
divorced.
guy's life is shit.
Right.
Look at how great the kid's doing though.
Yeah,
Like,
he's being shit on by the agency. I think
oh
he's
yeah.
divorced from his wife, and his wife like took their child, and they live in like Chicago or something now, so he can't see her. And then he goes to the laundromat, and somebody puts in a red sweater in with all of his nice FBI white shirts, and he
Yeah,
opens it
he's
up,
like,
and
"Is this anybody's?" And the old
it's
lady
just
just snatches it.
he doesn't even say sorry or
No, just
anything. It's just
snatches it right out of his
I
hand.
felt so bad, like a cab, but also I'm sorry.
Right. So this is where it also then it kind of shows he's having a sad sack life. He's having the supposedly great life, but they meet up on Christmas Eve. Well, they don't meet up, but he calls him on Christmas Eve.
Right.
Just to taunt him. Or he's like, I want this to end or whatever. And he's like, you're calling me because you're lonely. And it
Yeah, Frank,
flusters him
yeah.
and he hangs up. And at that
Yeah, he
point, Carl's
calls
like,
out Frank.
I got him. I got this
Yeah.
little bitch ass.
Yeah, he calls out Frank, and this is when they start kind of weaving in the idea that Frank and Tom Hanks' character Carl start to become they have some kind of like emotional connection
Mm-hmm.
between the two of them. And that's when they start to play into the whole Frank is still a child and his
Yeah.
parents have vanished for him, and Carl is missing his child. So now I don't think at this point he's realized that Frank is actually a child still or not. I can't remember exactly when that happened,
I don't think
but
quite yet.
I don't think so either, but it starts to form that emotional connection between the two because he
Yeah.
calls him and they're like he realizes. I think at first he thinks it's just going to be a gotcha, that he's going to be able to catch Frank with this, but that's where they set up the idea of this connection.
Yeah, for sure. So uh at this point, because he got called and taunted, Carl's still on it. He's like, I'm gonna catch this guy. And he's at a diner, and the kid serving him is like, oh, you like comics? He's like, the fuck are you talking about? He's like, Barry Allen. That's the name the kid was using, Frank was using on some of the checks. He's like, that's a comic book character. And that is when he goes, oh my god, it's a fucking kid. Like,
Right,
he's not an adult. We're profiling him
right.
wrong.
All of his aliases that he was using was all the real names of superheroes from the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, which is
So
hilarious.
right. So he's at this point you find out he has stolen 1.3 mil and still going. Um and he has moved down to Georgia where he's now a doctor.
Yep.
And
He just like walks into a hospital.
yeah. So it shows him partying and it's kind of setting it up to where Frank's life isn't good. It's kind of showing us again where it is a big party. There's literally a party happening at his house, but he's
Right.
irritated with everything that's happening around him.
He's so
Um
concerned about all of the objects and the
yeah,
rugs and the vases of things that
and his
are
clothes,
not
he's not
his.
having fun. Yeah, he's not having
Yeah.
fun at all. So then he's walking around the hospital and he says he's there to check on somebody. And this is where I probably should have paid attention more. But I was like, did he make up that name or was he really checking on somebody?
No, I think he made up that name because it goes from like he's at the party and like something happens at the party maybe, and I think somebody maybe got hurt, and so he had to go to the hospital, and that's where he goes to the hospital and he meets the nurse
Yes.
while he's
The
there.
cute
I
little candy striper.
Yeah, I think something did happen at the party, and that's why he initially was there, and then he got there and was like, "Mm, this could be a sweet life."
Yeah. He's like, I could do this.
Right.
So he becomes a doctor. And they don't really show how he got hired at the hospital, but he did. He's there,
Apparently
hired.
nobody checked. Nobody fucking
Yeah.
checked any kind of credentials
And he's
anywhere.
like the head of the hospital and he's falling in love with this little candy striper and they're about to do it and then you find out that they can't or she's not comfortable yet because she had an abortion and got kicked out of her home and she's still really
Sh
upset about that. And
She's
this is
very
where
religious.
yeah, And he's already had a moment at the hospital where they're like, we need you in the ER. And this kid's leg was all fucked up and he didn't know what the fuck to do and just wanted to throw up. And he was just like, do you concur? And the guy's like, what? And he's like, do you concur? And the guy's like, and the other guy's like, I think we should just like clean it up and put a cast on it. And he's like, sounds good. Do that. And like runs away to go throw up. So at this point, he's like, I'm done with the doctor thing. I don't think it's working out. And little Miss Candy Striper, in talking about what's happened to her, reveals that her dad is a lawyer. And that's when the bulb goes off. And he's like, how do you feel about getting married? Let's go meet the parents.
Right.
And so they go down. And this is where the part, they go down to meet her family. They're like in Louisiana. They're definitely in the bayou.
They're in New Orleans. Yeah.
And he's meeting her daddy and stuff, and he almost gets caught. Like he's like, I'm a Harvard man, and the guy's like, oh, did you know Professor so and so? And he's
No,
like,
it wasn't Harvard. It was so they're eating dinner and they're talking about him being a doctor and how he became a doctor, and he says something about, oh, I went to law school in wherever and I passed the bar in wherever, but I'm thinking about, I just decided that why not try medical school, which sounds absolutely bonkers.
right.
But he's like, but I've been thinking, I'm wanting to change jobs or whatever. So then his little girlfriend tries to convince the dad, like, why don't
She's like,
you
Daddy,
hire
hire
him?
And then
And they're
mom's like, yes, hire him.
right. And they're like, where did you go to school? And it started with a B. It wasn't Yale and it wasn't Harvard, but it was one of the Ivy Leagues that start
It
with
was
a
definitely
B.
Ivy League.
Yeah, and the dad then starts grilling him about, oh, what about
Yeah.
this professor? And then he's like,
He
well,
goes,
what was the name of the professor's dog? And he's like,
he's
I'm
dead.
so sorry to tell you this, but the dog died.
He was just like, he was dead. And everyone's just like, oh. And I'm just like, that shut it down. Like, for a second, I was like, oh, the dad's on him. The dad is on him. And then he said the dog's dead, and the dad was just like, oh.
Everybody got real awkward. I don't know why.
I'd be like,
maybe it's the tism. I'd have been like, I still asked you a question. If
yeah,
he's
that
dead,
doesn't
what was
answer.
his name? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't prove anything.
So what I loved, so after that's a family dinner, they go into the smoking room, for the men.
Yeah, apparently
And he's
they had
grilling
that.
him on like, why do you want to marry my daughter? Why do you want to marry my daughter? And he gives him the sappy answer, I just love her so much. And the guy's like, I'm a romantic too.
Which, honestly, at this point in the movie and later on with what happens, I feel like it could kind of be true that he was really in love with this girl, at least to an extent.
Oh, definitely. I do think, well, okay, I think he loved the idea of it. And it even showed it again, because he grew up watching his parents dance. While he's in their house, he's seeing the closeness of that husband and wife, her parents. And I think in his mind, she was just good enough to fit that role. Like he is so desperate for a family unit. Like generally to start getting into these fields of making lots of money really fast was to put his parents back together. And as this is going on, he's starting to realize his parents are never going to get back together.
Right.
Then it starts turning to like, he needs a family now. He has to find that woman. And I think she just was there.
Fit the bill.
Yeah. She was there. He could make that work.
Right.
So, but what I did find funny, and I was like, what? Because they cut it so weird. So the dad's like, so I approve of you. Why don't you go ahead and ask me that question of why you came here? He goes, how do I take the boards? Right. And he's like, okay, yeah, I can help you with that. But like the other question, and then it just cuts. It goes to another scene. So I was like, did he not even ask? Did he tell this girl they're getting married and then just be like, how do I take the boards? And then like, so, but then it cuts back to him. I think it went and showed Carl doing something, but then it comes back and he's he's going into the boards and then he's working as a lawyer under her father. So then you're just kind of like, well, then obviously they stayed together. If he's still working under the dad, he wouldn't have been like, There's no way you'd be able to like hurt his daughter that bad, but still get to work under him, you know?
Or
Like,
even get to work, like, in town if her dad was
yeah,
such a prolific
exactly.
lawyer, 'cause he had money.
Oh yeah, he was working like he's like, we're gonna meet the governor this week. I'm like,
Right,
damn. Like,
right.
so so while they're getting married, FBI is getting closer to him. They go and interview his dad. Like they found out who he is for sure.
Right.
And then in that they found out he is in Louisiana. I didn't really write down how they got there, but they got there.
Well, the funniest thing about that part to me was when they went to interview the mom, and the mom was like, "Oh my god, he stole money? It's okay, it's okay. I picked up a part-time job. How much did he spend? I can write you a check."
Yeah.
And that's when we find out it's 1.3 million dollars.
Yeah.
And
And
like
she's
that
just
was the
standing there with her pen like,
and Carl Tom Hanks just closes the door after that.
yeah,
He's like, "It's 1.3 million," and just leaves. Close the
yeah.
door.
Because there's nobody has that amount of money in 67. That's
She's gonna write you a check.
right. So they get there's big announcements happening. Oh, they found him in Georgia. They knew he was Dr. Connor. They found out he had the girl, so they were like, he can't change his name. Look for a Connor. That's how they got down to Louisiana because of his wedding announcement and the party. So they end up at the wedding rehearsal party thing that they were
Right.
having.
I think it
And
was the
Frank
day before
sees
the
them
wedding. Yeah.
coming, so then you end up with this tense moment of like they're downstairs talking to the mom, talking to the dad, trying to find exactly where Frank is in the building. Frank's upstairs packing his money, and he's trying to tell the girl like,
And
I'm
he
not who
tells
you
her
fucking think I
everything.
am. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
like,
he
I'm not who you think I am, but I got a lot of fucking money. I got tons of money here, so just come with me.
he's
Just come
got
with
2
me.
suitcases.
We'll have a fucking life together. Don't even worry about it. And she's just like, what the fuck's happening? So
2
he's like, meet me
suitcases
in
full of
Miami.
cash.
Yeah, he's like, meet me in Miami in 2 fucking days. Let's do this. And she's just standing there with cash in her hand. He's gone by the time the cops kick in that door.
He dips out the window.
Yeah, he's gone. And this was seen. So as the cops come up the stairs to kick in the door, that dollar that flipped out, it's something I've noticed throughout this movie, and like the way they shined on the pilot. They really did a good job of seeing life through Frank's eyes in a childlike way, and
Right. It's very
putting that,
whimsical.
yeah, exactly, those small pieces of whimsy that tell you this is a child telling this story, you know,
Right.
like he's a kid happening. And then
Right.
whenever you see it through Carl's point of view, it's like dark, it's dank,
Yeah.
it's like
Very
no fun.
demure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I love that they make you feel in the 60s, not just by costume and stuff, but like even camera shots. They got all those like dun dun dun.
Yeah.
We're walking. Like
Right. It's
these
very
great camera
dramatic.
shots. Yeah, that really just put you in that time frame awesomely. So anyway, so Frank tells her, so we're now 2 days later. He pulls up at the airport. He sees his girl get out. He's about to be like, let me go pick up my honey. And then he realizes there's cops everywhere.
Everywhere. Yep.
It's swarming. And he's like, oh, let me get back down.
JK.
He's like,
Just
and he drives
kidding.
away, never to see his little candy striper again. And then pretty soon, so the cops are like, well, he's going to stay in Miami. This is the only way he can get out. So we're going to stay infested in this airport. This causes him to pick back up the airport outfit, the pilot, and he goes to a college and he's like, who wants to work for Pan
Yeah,
Am?
he does like a
I'm going to
did that
pick 8 girls.
I guess
Just
they
right.
did
I'm like,
this.
nobody checked credentials here at all.
He
So he
literally
picks,
calls them on a payphone, is like, "Hey, Pan Am is running this special with college girls. We're gonna pick
yeah,
8 of them or
and we're just
whatever."
going to go.
And
I'm
he
just going to
goes
take
and like
them.
interviews all of them. He like really makes it seem like it's like he's very good about
Oh,
like
yeah. Oh, for
posturing up
sure.
and going like he's doing it like step by step. It's like he has a list written down of all the steps that would be normal, that would make sense for this situation, and he runs through
Oh, yeah.
each of them. He's like ticking off everything,
Oh, yeah.
and he
Frank's a
gets these 8
genius.
girls. Like,
Yeah. He's a genius. And he picks the prettiest girls, pretty dumb
right,
ones.
right.
Like, he made sure the ones who had the dumbest answers, they got in. And the
The dresses, that the flight attendants had. I know that was like a big cultural thing.
No, it's
Like
very true.
it was
But
like a cultural, kind of like a cultural shift of like the airline stewardesses were like
oh yeah.
supposed to be like the hottest thing ever. But to me, I'm just like, it's just a dress. Like, you guys had flappers who wore more revealing clothing than the stupid stewardess dresses. So like, why are
Yeah,
you
but
so distracted?
they would have been so far removed from flappers.
But
Like,
still,
that was the
well,
20s.
I don't know. Maybe now I just have a hard time differentiating time periods because of like the internet. So like we
Well,
see things all the time. Maybe that's
yeah.
why. But I was just very confused as to why in general in American culture specifically these stewardess outfits, and not only that but the diner waitress outfits were like of the same vein where everybody thought they were like so sexy.
So
Like,
sexy. It's form fitting. It's a pin skirt instead of a poof.
you got tights on, like, calm down.
Right. It's seriously just the equivalent of um showing the ankle, you know?
Yeah, like,
Like,
that's so weird.
ooh.
Anyway.
Anyways, so he gets out of the airport. He's gone into Europe, and the FBI is like, "You fucking failed, Carl. Sucks for you. We're not going after him." But he's doing the same
Right.
shit in Europe, and Carl does end up getting called in to take him down, and he finds him and like a
It's like a
cottage,
printing press.
just a shit ton of printing happening around him, and he seems to have lost his fucking mind.
Yeah, he looks
Like,
crazy.
he's
He's
like,
like,
Carl,
he looks like he's
oh
been
my
working in a
god,
coal mine. Like, he's got,
right?
like, a wife beater, he's all
And why are you
dirty, and he's
so
just, like,
dirty?
yelling, and
Have
there's
you even
literally
been spending the checks, or are you just
there's
in there?
checks.
Like,
Everywhere. Like, he's talking so, like, Carl walks in and Carl is totally by himself and he doesn't have a weapon because you're not allowed to have those in like European countries wherever he's at. And he's just like talking to him
I
and
don't
he
think that was a
sounds,
rule this time period. They definitely had guns when they
maybe,
pulled up.
well, Carl
Yeah,
specifically doesn't
Carl
have
went
a
in
weapon.
unarmed, but I think because Carl always, because he's been getting these Christmas calls forever, and this is Christmas Eve. They set it up as Christmas Eve that Carl's
Right.
seeing him in person. He's like, Carl, we always meet on Christmas. Like, but he's
Yeah.
unarmed. But I think that was just because he was like, he knew the kid was caught and the kid would give up. Like,
And he
he
knew it
didn't
was a
need to be
kid.
armed.
So
Yeah.
maybe he didn't want to like harm a kid.
Yeah.
Like, he knew he
I
had
think
him. Okay, that
he
makes
knew
sense.
the
Yeah, that
jig was
makes more
up,
sense.
and it's just us, man. You got to come on. And
And
so,
then he walks in and or Frank looks like a fucking psycho.
yeah, Frank's lost his mind. But Carl's like, they're here. It's a whole shit ton of them. They're coming for you. You're going to fucking die if you don't put on these handcuffs right now and let me capture you. And so he's like, you're playing me, man. You're playing me. He's like, am I? And so he finally puts the handcuffs on, and they go outside and nothing's happening. Nobody's there. And he's like, you got me. But then all of a sudden, they all
They
come in.
pull up. Yeah.
So, fun fact, the real Frank Abagnale is in that scene. He's one of the cops that arrests Leo.
Really?
He is.
Good for him.
So, yeah, so he's caught now. Now, and all through the movie too, you've been getting these flashbacks of when he was in the Paris prison, which was apparently hell. Like, he's sick, he's coughing. He's now you're coming back to that time, and you see him try to escape again. He like plays sick and stuff, and he's like
But he's like
hobbling
actually
away.
kind of fucked up.
Yeah, he's like hobbling down the hallway, and they're like, "Just what are you doing?
Yeah, they're extraditing him at this
Just get
point.
in the fucking
Carl
car,
is
bro."
here.
Yeah,
Carl is trying to take him back to America, and
yeah,
like that was a very funny scene as well. Him just like
yeah. He's like, "Just take me home, Carl." So then he gets home. He's on the airplane going back home, and you find out
he's
what
on the airplane going
Carl
back
really wants
home.
to know about the test. but he doesn't
Yeah.
tell him about the test yet. But he's like, I gotta. Oh, Carl. He finds out his dad dies.
Yeah.
Carl breaks that to him because he thinks he's gonna go speak to his dad, and Carl's like, "You're not gonna see your dad. He fell down in a freak accident and broke his neck."
Broke his neck. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he's like,
Wild.
"I gotta use the bathroom," and he goes in
Yep.
the bathroom, and they're waiting for him to come out. He's not coming out. This little shit crawled in behind the toilet, came out at the undercarriage, and jumped and ran away.
As the plane was
Yeah.
landing, he
But I guess they
fully
caught
ran
him
out.
pretty fast. And then,
Yeah, he goes to his mom's house is the
yeah,
thing.
he
His
goes straight to his
mom,
mom's house and he sees his mom has a whole new family.
a whole new
Another
family with
little
a little
girl.
girl.
The husband, she married the guy she was cheating with,
Yep.
and they had kids. And this like devastates Frank.
Yeah.
And so when Carl pulls up with everyone, he's like, just take me, Carl, just take me home.
Yeah, just
Like,
take me because
yeah.
now he has nothing,
Oh
right?
yeah,
He
it was all
lost
for naught.
everything.
Yeah. He didn't get anything out of it. So he ends up doing his time, and then Carl ends up showing him a check of a case, and he like reads it so well he convinces them to let Frank out to work for the FBI and working in their fraud department and stuff.
Right, because now all of a sudden the FBI is like, actually, there might be something here with this check
Yeah,
fraud,
you
white
got a
collar shit.
talent. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So they do
the
that. They let him
yeah,
out, and he does get bored. Like he's not fitting in well, so he goes to run again. And Carl's like, "Nobody's fucking chasing you, but be back Monday." And
right. It's like a real job. It's the first
yeah,
time in his life that he's ever had not only a real job, but somebody who is expecting him to come.
yeah,
So like someone who is like it's all his responsibility now. But he has like a ugh, sorry, there was a hair in my mouth. He has like like real life responsibilities, a real life job, and it's
yeah.
not doing something like so mundane and so stupid like being a grocer or something like that. Like it's a totally different world that he is right now totally inequipped
Oh yeah,
to understand and deal with. And he's still like at this point he has to be like what, 18,
yeah,
19? Like he's still a kid. He's still a
yeah.
child.
So he ends up. You get back to the office, and you're kind of like, "Oh shit, Frank ran out. Like he's late. He's not there." And then last minute, Frank shows up, and they sit down, pan out, movie over. Everyone
Right.
clapped.
And this is when it kind of really solidifies like that relationship between Frank and Carl
Mm-hmm.
of like it's kind of like Carl took him kind of like under his wing and like showed him a different way because growing up all he saw was his dad scheming and scamming.
Yeah.
So it was like he really didn't have
And
a chance.
seeing, because he did it underhanded, and this is where the dad's character was really good, um because it was like he was loving, like
Right.
outwardly, but you saw where he was proud of Frank for scheming and scamming,
Right.
and Frank was not going to be stopping no matter how upset or sad Frank was. Like it didn't matter. Frank did not matter to his father.
Right.
It was the prestige he could bring.
Right.
And
His every time he called his dad up and was like, "Dad, I'm a pilot now." Just
yeah,
out of nowhere, which again, he's like 16, 17 at this point, and he's calling his dad saying, "Oh, Pan Am accepted me. I'm gonna be a pilot," or "Oh, now I'm gonna be a doctor." Da, da, da. Every time he called his dad, it was like his dad was so overly proud of him, and I'm sure his
yeah,
dad probably knew it was a scam, but it didn't matter because he just wanted we get these little in cuts of his dad speaking and talking to Frank while Frank is on the run, and he's talking about, like, skipping out on his taxes and like
yeah,
all of these business propositions that he's doing that people owe him money for different businesses, random scams that he's done. So you get like this in cut of his dad basically only showing Frank one way to do things and only accepting one thing from Frank this entire time. He wasn't set up in a way as a child where he could have been anything except another schemer and scammer.
Yeah.
because it's the only thing that was modeled for him and the only thing his dad seemed to care about at all.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, and you even saw it when Frank first got his first big money. He was like, I bought you a caddy.
Right.
Frank's
He bought him
dad
a
plays it
Cadillac.
very hot and cold. He starts in super hot, like,
Right.
how fucking dare you insult me? You don't think I could buy my own cars? Don't think I could buy my own suits? Like, very like, how dare you come for my ego that way? But he very quickly switches it and back to being nice. That's fine,
Right.
son. I love you anyways. Let's eat. Like, and it's such subtle.
Right.
It's
It's like, how dare you? But I would like the caddy.
yeah, and you see the manipulation in that, like
Yeah.
playing him where he is like I'm gonna scare you and I'm gonna let you know you aren't that fucking great, but I'm gonna give you just a little bit of honey so you keep coming back.
Yeah. So
And
like the only thing you're good for me is giving me these things. But
yeah,
I'm also going to make you feel bad for giving me these things at the same
oh
time.
yeah,
It's very
just so
confusing.
you know, you're never actually gonna be good enough, but keep fucking trying, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to keep reaping the benefits of all this shady shit that you're doing.
Yeah,
Absolutely, the entire time, which is why the relationship he ends up forming with Carl is like night and day. And
yeah,
that's such a mind fuck when you grow up with parents who aren't great, to interact with someone who is actually a good parent, and even though they're not your parent, they start treating you kindly, and they get into this position of like a, a guide, like
yeah,
someone who could show you the way and actually appreciate you for who you are as a person. It's such a weird thing to happen to someone who has grown up being nothing, the only use you have is what you can provide, even as a young child.
yeah,
Like, it's so weird, which is why I think, in my opinion, the relationship between them that forms is so interesting, because I get it.
yeah,
I know how that feels.
definitely interesting and beautiful. It's like a
Yeah,
bromance. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's really nice.
for sure. And they played it so well. Like,
Mm,
so believable.
yeah,
So let's get into how close did the movie get? How amazing was the
yeah.
Frank Abagnale
Who is Frank?
Jr.? Who is Frank Abagnale? So, according to frankabagnale.com, yeah,
Of
one of the
course.
first things that pops up is his own website. He's one of the world's most respected authorities on embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. He's worked for over 40 years with lecturing with the FBI, other government agencies, and like some schools and stuff all around the world. Uh, and then he just had a shit ton of awards. Like, all it had his own page of just award after award after award after award after award. Like, he's he's made millions. And he says he doesn't take from the government sector, he only takes from the private sector, who hires him for all their like security breaching needs.
Because didn't he like come up with the idea of like the embossing and shit
Mm-hmm.
on the checks? So like all of the little anti-theft devices, he was the one that
Yep.
uh, suggested that they implement them so that nobody could do what he did.
Yeah. So uh, I found, I'm gonna say there's not much. Like, there wasn't a whole lot to pick from other than Frank himself. And then I found like one other podcast. So apparently Frank was born April 27th, 1948 in New York.
Mhm.
For his father, who did own a business, and he was actually one of four children. So it
Oh.
makes sense they would make him an only child, streamline the
Mm.
narration. Um, and they did live a very comfortable life, but unlike the movie, they seem to always have a comfortable life. Frank Sr. never lost his job, but he did lose his wife. His wife was kind of tired of his shit because he was out always playing golf and stuff. So she wanted to go be an independent woman. She went to dental school and she did leave him. And his father would use Frank to try to get his mom back, like try to send her gifts and stuff, but it never
Gross.
worked. And unlike the movie, she never got remarried. She stayed single the whole time. But Frank chose to live with his father, and his father would also do the back alley deals and always be in bars, and Frank would go with him to do those things. And so while he was in school, he ended up getting in with the crowd of boys that did like petty crimes and stuff like that and stole a car. He did end up getting arrested for that, but because of his father's connections, he didn't get convicted or anything put on his record. But his dad was like, get your shit together, pretty much. Like, you're too good for these boys. And after that, apparently Frank turned it around. Like, they want to do more serious crimes, apparently, but more respectable stuff. He started going back to school and stuff. His dad ended up getting him a new car to kind of reward him for getting better, going back to school and stuff. And that's when he met the ladies. They loved the new car. So he was
all you needed was a car.
Yeah, apparently he's getting laid left and right, but in the act of needing to go on dates, he needed money. So he convinced his dad to give him his charge card, which I was like, I didn't know they had charge cards in the 60s, but this is how.
Yeah, they would like, that was like the,
I guess that's
the paper.
I thought that was the 90s. Either way. So
I don't
that's
know,
where
maybe.
he saw, right? So that's where he saw like the gas station up the street was having this deal, and they had it where like kind of like the same thing, like if you give me this check, I'll go ahead and give you cash and tires. And he's something like that. He started a scam like that, and but it was all, he thought nothing was going to be happening with that, but it was his dad's car, so his dad was getting these bills, and he racked up like $3,000. So the company ended up coming, he would throw away the bills so his dad wouldn't know, and the company ended up coming to the house and they sit Frank down to like explain like what's happening. So then the dad's like, well, I'll just pay it back, but you know, once again, Frank, let's get our shit together. Weirdly enough, soon after this, Frank's dad loses everything, but not for tax reasons. Just, he swears it's not because Frank made him spend $3,000, but it kind of sounds like because Frank made him spend $3,000. That was just like all he had.
That didn't help, I'm sure. That right? Absolutely didn't help.
So, this is around the time that he runs away, and this is when he's 16. He runs away. The real life Frank apparently never spoke to his father ever again, while the movie Frank did keep a relationship with his father. But oddly enough, it doesn't say why. Like, he went from living with his dad and being bailed out by his dad to just, I'm never going to speak to you again. When I turn 16, I'm running away.
Oh, I wonder what happened there.
Right?
That sounds like a story.
While he's on the train, he meets a kid, gives him this lie about him being an orphan and wanting to make it. He ends up in New York City, and the kid's family lets him stay with them for a couple weeks. He gets a job at a grocery store. It's paying like $2 an hour. He's like, I think it's because I'm underage. This is where he changes his birth certificate to make him 10 years older. So it says, his paperwork says he's 26. And he gets another job working for a truck company. He's not making much more. And he just decided, I could just make false checks pretty much, like, and this is a waste of my time. So with that, he ends up waste of his time. So this is around the time when he apparently sees the pilot walking with his girls, and according to him, it was a ha-ha moment, and he followed them in, and he did that thing, like he never pretended to be a paper boy, but he did like go get a badge made. He called, went to get the uniform like in the movie and stuff. Unlike the movie where he like first day walks in and they put him on a flight, he had actually patrolled that airport for weeks, just getting in different conversations, trying
surveillance.
To pick up the lingo. Yeah, before he was tested out the waters on the actually jumping on a plane.
Which makes more sense than him not even knowing what a deadhead was in the movie. Yeah.
So he ends up doing that for 2 years.
God damn.
While racking up the craziness. So he ends up in 66, he ends up having close calls with someone actually accusing him of not being a pilot. And he acted all crazy and like defensive, which made people be like, leave him alone. But he knew the gig was up. So he kind of like got out of the situation and backed off. And then that's when he ended up like he moved down to Georgia, and he just had the idea to use doctor for getting an apartment. But then he ended up moving in next to a doctor who he was kind of like, if you want to come to the hospital, you know. So he ends up staking out a library now for multiple weeks, trying to get up on that lingo, and then starts walking around the hospital, kind of doing the same thing, just getting into different conversations, getting to know them, eventually being offered a nighttime job. Now he tried to use the excuse because he was like, it's pretty deep water here. So he was trying to be like, well, I'm not actually like certified in your state. So, you know, I don't think I can have this job. And the guy was like, it's like you're a supervisor. It's, you know, just come talk to the board. And this is where he was like, I just wanted the challenge. Just, I shouldn't have done it, but I just wanted to see if I could get away with it. And he did. He like kills it in there. And so he gets the job. That scene in the hospital where he like, do you concur? He says happened. Like he threw up. Now the picking up the candy striper there didn't happen, but he once again almost got caught. He was at the hospital for 11 months, and then he ended up almost getting caught. So then he left to go down to Louisiana on his own. He just wanted to go down there, and he ended up going to a couple different parties. And that's when he met the attorney general, who was like, well, yeah, we're looking for people. And he was like, oh, are you? And he goes and takes the bar. Unlike the movie where he passed the first time, it took him 3 times, but he did eventually pass the bar, and he got the job. And it was pretty much a glorified secretary, but it worked for him. Now, while he was down there, he did meet a girl, but her, what was it? I think she knew the guy, but he worked with another attorney who like knew her and was asking a shit ton of questions, and was starting to get, because they apparently went to the same school, so that made him go, ugh, I gotta go again. You're getting too close to me. Yeah. Then he ends up in Utah, where he is playing as a professor now. That only lasts like a couple weeks. And then that's when he decides, so I guess he did get a call or something was giving him the feeling the FBI was getting close to him. So he jumped over to Europe. They did catch him. Like he didn't get to play fraud over there for a while. So he spent 6 months in a Sweden jail, 6 months in the Paris jail, comes back to America to get convicted for his American crimes, and spends 12 months or less because they cut it down.
So he's like 20s now.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yes. So, and he did escape from prison when he was being transferred. That someone did his paperwork wrong in 71, and they were like, "Are you a prisoner?" He's like, "No, I'm an inspector. I need to go out that door." And they're like, "Oh, okay," and they just let him walk out. He was caught pretty soon after, and he finished doing his time, just like in the movie. And then, like in the movie, worked for the FBI and stuff like that. And I would say I'm done. But that's Frank Abagnale's story according to Frank. And this is where it gets juicy, because when you try to look in deeper to find maybe the officer's side of the story or the actual investigation, you're not going to find any of that. It does not exist.
So does it not exist at all, or is it this is another one of those things that is like classified?
No, it just doesn't exist. Because according to a Mr. Alan Logan, who
Who the hell is Alan?
after decades of hearing about Frank and how great he is and all the things he did, he also realized, where's all the sources? Where are the officers? Where is everyone who would talk about this? So he did some digging, and it's all, according to him, bullshit.
So who the hell is Alan? Is he like a journalist or like?
Alan's a journalist, and
Okay.
he worked with a couple other journalists to
Okay.
write this book, but also put out different articles. So according to them, Frank is Frank. He was born, all this stuff, child of 4, definitely happened, and definitely did run away at 16. So for them, they're saying, so the lie started in 77 when he got on that TV show. And that
So
was
he really got on a TV show.
Oh yeah, that really happened.
Okay.
He got on the TV show, and that's when the lie started. The I became a pilot really got out there. And the media picked that up, but nobody checked his sources. And as he was just telling stories, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, he also got, when after his story, he wrote the book Catch Me If You Can. Frank did, and it's supposed to be his biography. And this is what the movie's based off, Frank's biography that he wrote in 1980.
Sounds a little fishy, Frank.
Yes, but when Alan looked into it, all these years he was given of like, when I was a pilot, when I was a doctor, when I was a lawyer, he was in jail. All of that time. He is not a child prodigy, apparently.
Well, he is, just a different kind.
Now, I will say, this is where their source to me gets a little, now they gave way more sources than Frank did, so I'll give them that. But they say that at 16, he ran away by joining the Navy. But I was like, I'm pretty sure at any time in our country, you had to be at least 17 or 18 to join the military.
But I know like back then, like the whole Captain America thing of him like lying on his forms, like there wasn't
Well,
a
that he
lot
could
of,
have lied on his form.
there's not a lot of way for them to check. There wasn't a database
Yeah,
back then, so he could have feasibly like
lied and got in.
gotten a fake ID and lied and gone to the Navy.
Yeah.
But then if he did, then there would be some type of record of if he used his real name, or like there would be some type of record
Well, that's
of
what I'm
some
saying. He
kind.
must have a record because they're saying he got discharged after 2 months. So I'm like,
That's
you didn't last at all. My God.
Oh, you didn't even make it through boot camp.
Yeah. He stole some cars. He got caught, got put in jail. By 1964, holy crap, was that right there? No, he did something, but ended up back in jail. So around this time, he did pretend to be a pilot, but it only lasted like a week. He was quickly caught. He did rack up $1,300 in fraud, not $1.3 million. Nowhere near that amount. He was caught and charged with vagrancy. He did do jail time in Sweden and Paris for the fraud stuff. He did do those things. And he did, once he got back to America, did escape jail the way he did very briefly, but got brought back pretty quickly. And then that's when it's like, that was his criminal history. A little bit of fraud was definitely in there, but it wasn't as prolific as the movie claimed to be. He never did the doctor thing. Now he claims, so they say they interviewed everyone involved, even the candy striper, and they're like, no. And not the candy striper, the Ellen Pompeo's character,
I
the
got you. Yeah.
stewardess.
Yeah.
She says when he met her, he stalked her. First of all, she kept trying to get him away. He stalked her like crazy. Then she was like, well, I really need to see my family. So he's like, I'll go with you. She's the one who had a family in Louisiana, and that's who he met to pretend to be a lawyer. But apparently all that never truly happened. Like, he went to her family's home, and she said he stole checks. He like just lazed around, pretty much just used her family until he moved on. But the hospital saying that never happened. That wasn't a thing. He never became a lawyer down there. Those things never happened. Now he says, of course they'd say that would make them look bad to admit that they had messed up that badly, which I'm like, little bit fair enough, but you know. So yeah, according to this Alan Logan guy, his greatest deception is what he's doing now. when he put out the lie in the first place and no one checked him, and he's made millions
Right.
apparently working for these private companies setting up their security stuff.
That
And
is way funnier than the
okay,
original story.
right? I was like, so either way, he's still kind of a genius though. Like he's a millionaire off bullshit. Now, how that bullshit happened, he still did it. Like maybe just not child prodigy levels, you know? Like he was trying to pull off. But yeah. Oh, and then apparently
Frank.
so the Carl's part was actually a myriad of officers. There was no just Carl.
Mhm.
Of the one officer, his last name was Shay, who was apparently the one he was friends with for 30 years and did actually capture him. No one can ask Shay his side of the story because he passed away before the story really broke. Then apparently there are other officers involved, but they're not talking. Like they're too old now. This new book came out in 2020. So I guess it's, but according to the FBI, yes, he has lectured for them. He's never helped with any cases. And he only lectured more recently in his career. Like, so it's like, oh, after the lies were told. Okay. But I'm like, I still feel like, I mean, this lie has been happening since 77. He still has his business and stuff.
Die with the lie.
Why at no point did the FBI
Fucking
not
die.
go, you don't work for us? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, would it really matter? You know what I
no.
mean? It's not like
Well, it
it's
would
not
matter
like
to his life.
right, but it's
Might
not
as
like
well just
he
walk in.
oh good
Go.
lord. But
I don't even know how he's out right now.
I mean, for the FBI itself, like would it it's I just feel like it wouldn't be even be on there. They'd just be like, "You know what? Let this guy say whatever the fuck." You
Yeah.
know,
He
like
wants to use this for clout. Go for it.
it's the fucking FBI. Like they've done some fuck shit. So do we really want to get in a pissing contest?
But I also, okay, hear me out though. Because I'm all for believing that he's full of shit. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he's
Because
100% full of shit and
I kind of
I
think he's full
love
of
it.
shit.
I
But
love it.
I will say, even if the FBI never came out publicly, like even if they were like, yeah, whatever, higher up politicians know higher up rich uh CEOs. At some point when they be like, oh, we're working at that Frank Abagnale guy. You guys know that guy. When they be like, no, we don't. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I mean, I
but yet
think that
he worked for them, works currently for them.
I think here's the thing. Humans are so weird. Humans are so funny. Like and I know that there's like so much of it, information available like at our fingertips, but not everybody like knows everything. So it could be that like maybe he is actually good at this now. Maybe he has actually learned now how to do things and what the best way to handle everything is. So now when he consults for people, maybe he's doing an actual like halfway decent job at it. So like do they really care if everything he's saying is bullshit, if he's been actively helping them and is doing a decent job? Like, is it really gonna matter to them? And is he in the upper echelon or is this just like his company that they're contracting with? And then he's just on the payroll kind of thing? Like, where is the level? Like, at what level is he involved and how much is his involvement? You know what I mean? Like,
You would
obviously,
think,
he's not like a famous person. He's not going for any kind of like political position or anything. So, all of this past history, he can fucking say whatever he wants because no one's going to look into it because they're like, oh, yeah, my buddy who I golf with used him and they got good results. So I'm also going to use him because I want good results. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not doing like these big companies, once you get to a certain point, like you do background checks on like your lower echelon, like your fucking admin assistants and shit. You do background checks on them, but when you're contracting, as long as you meet a certain criteria, as long as his company has certain people that probably have, like, security clearances and it's not actually him that needs the security clearance, eh, that's just how these big government companies work. I mean, I'm sure if you went to like the top people at what is it, like Blackwater or whatever,
Hmm.
or some of the top people even at like Google and shit, I'm sure they couldn't get actual security clearances, but the people under them that are doing the actual work, they got the security clearance. They got all of the background and all of the knowledge and all of the education. So that's the people that the government and these big companies are checking for, not the guy who's just the face.
Yeah, but he couldn't have just started out as the face. It was just him that
I mean,
started the company.
it would be easy enough to get an assistant who handles all your shit or get an entry level position. Like how many entry level positions in big companies are out there? Like, really, like, it would
Yeah.
be so easy to do a startup. There's a startup happening, like, every minute in the United States. It would be so I mean, I'm sure it was more difficult back in, like, the '80s and '90s, but now, shit, nobody's checking that shit. Dog, die with the lie. I'm so proud of Frank. You go you get it. You fucking you you keep going, Frank. I hope you never get found out. I hope the
I
lie
mean, I
dies
will
with you.
say, well, I mean, at this point, you've been found out. But
Kind of, not
I
really,
mean,
but
does
kind
it
of.
matter?
Yeah.
I'm sure if even if every one of his clients was like, "Yeah, we can't work with you anymore. Your name's dirty now." I
He's
don't
got
think it matters.
investments.
He's already rich as fuck. I don't think
Sell the company. You
yeah.
just sell the company and
And he
it
probably wouldn't even have to do
rebrands.
that. He just has to pull a Vince McMahon or whatever, I step aside. My company's now separate from me.
That's what I'm saying, you rebrand.
Yeah. Like,
Companies do it all the time to get
oh
out of
yeah.
paying taxes and shit. So
No,
just I
that
mean,
shit's solidified now. Like he's up there. You're never gonna knock his ass down. Like
yeah, good for him.
he did it. Like it went from little shitty car thief
Good for
to
him.
fucking
I
king of the world.
I am all for scamming large companies out of their
I am all for
dollars.
scamming large companies. And I do not support the scamming of small families. But
Yeah,
I mean, he did do time in jail, so
but large companies, yeah,
yeah,
we are pro
yeah, I don't
scamming
care.
them. So you go, Frank. I
Yeah.
hope you pass that on to like your kids and they continue the lie.
Oh yeah. Which he does. He has a wife and kids. They've
Good.
been married for
Teach
26
them your
years.
ways.
Right. But only towards big companies. Leave
Only
us
towards
little
big
guys
companies.
alone.
Yep, exactly. Solidarity.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why that doesn't exist. So this case I just found fun. So I'll say
Yeah.
this movie at 10 out of 10. This is a great
Yeah.
movie.
I liked it. Yeah.
Beautifully done, funny, lighthearted, but
Right.
serious. It's great. This is
Yep.
great. You'll be super impressed.
Right.
True Life Frank. I mean, he threw me for a loop, and I
He did
enjoyed
it.
it. And
He did the damn
I
thing.
enjoyed it.
I love him. He's my new hero.
Yeah, like even if the movie was just straight on, cool. I'd be so proud if my kid by 16 was just killing it out here, just
Right? Don't get
dunking on the
caught.
FBI. I'd be like, I
Better
like,
be fucking smart about it.
right. But I also
We're about to
even
lose it.
like we all said, even if that was a lie, he still pulled off the greatest hoax in creating a multi-million-dollar company out of fuck all and lies. Like, good for him.
Yeah, good
Like,
job, Frank.